So let's talk about Anthony Palma, one of the most notorious cases from Kirsten, 8-year-old girl that he raped and murdered. He was found beaten and strangled to death in his prison cell in Oklahoma. But this is one of the biggest miscarriage of justice, as he would go 20 years without any problems. And it's not like he just flew under the radar. Before I go into what happened to him in prison, let me give you a little rundown of this piece of shit. 13th, 1997, Kirsten would go missing from her home in Oklahoma. A window was broken where there was blood in the underwear of this little girl. She was nowhere to be found. Nobody knew what happened. They thought maybe her mom, who was heavy into drugs, and her family had something to do with it. Her whole family was investigated, all possible chomos in the area, up and down. They found out DCF has been in and out that house, major issues. And they found DNA on the little girl's underwear, as well as blood on the window that was broken. Yet, as DNA was still in its infancy and it was just no way to match who it was, the case would go cold for 20 years. I meet Anthony Palma. This is where the miscarriage of justice is beyond belief. With the FBI involved, major investigation, they finally get the DNA back and it comes back to Anthony Palma. This piece of shit right here. Now, what makes me so angry about this entire case is, of course, everything. But the fact is this: they were looking everywhere, investigating the family. The mom went and left. She got clean, took her other kid, and left the state. The whole time Anthony Palma was living there, DNA on the underwear. It took till 2017 for them to realize he, the next door neighbor, is the one that went in there. And they didn't give a fuck to check any of this out. In 1980, the sister, an 8-year-old as well, of someone that Anthony Palma was dating, said that her window was broken into. He touched her inappropriately. And the woman said that she didn't tell anyone about the incident for more than 20 years. Palma was never charged with the case. Okay, but that's still 2000. So why didn't they go and investigate and realize, oh, he's the next door neighbor. Let's check his DNA. Then you have more bullshit. 1982, this piece of shit, Chomo Palma, he went in there and beat his landlord up, hit her with a soda bottle, and the woman said she believes he was trying to knock her out so that he could rape her. However, the son was there, screamed, stopped the attack. He got convicted of first-degree burglary. He was sentenced to 5 years, but was released from prison in 1986, which means he did less than 3 years. So here we are. A little girl was taken May 13, 1997, 8 years old, Kirsten Hatfield, and they're looking everywhere. And this guy was arrested for breaking into a home, beating a woman, and he's the next door neighbor. And then here we go, 1998, a 17-year-old said that Palma, the coward weasel motherfucker, gave her a pill that made her black out. She had flashes of the memory after taking the pill, basically laying in a bathtub and so on and so on. She says that when she was regaining consciousness, she was wearing Palma's boxer shorts. Even though medical exam revealed evidence of sexual assault, Palma was never charged with anything. So a little girl is missing, and they're looking everywhere except to the neighbor. The FBI is there, multiple agencies. The mom leaves. They have no good leads. And meanwhile, this guy goes and lives his life for 20 years. As always, the system will let these kids die. They will not give a fuck. They will just put it on the back burner and just say, oh well. You move in anywhere, first you need to go and know every single person that's living near you. I understand the mom was on drugs and what, no excuse. You have a kid, that shit's over with. Your only job in this world is to keep that little girl safe. So this guy, Palma, wasn't just hiding in the community as some creep. Oh, he would have the little kids over his house, fixing their bikes and feeding them. And you mean to tell me not one parent in that community said, who the fuck is this creep with our kids over there? People could say, oh, it's different. No, I grew up, 97. You know, I wasn't going in no motherfucker's house to hang out. What the fuck? My dad would have fucking killed that motherfucker. It would be impossible. And then if something happened, God forbid, the first place you guys wouldn't look is to the 3-time fucking chomo motherfucker convicted for violent crimes, drugging, raping, burglarizing, beating 8-year-olds, 17-year-olds, grown women. It would take to 2017 for the DNA to come back and you guys to realize, oh, we made a mistake. And then they wonder why stuff like this happens. He would ultimately get sentenced to life in prison. Now, imagine you're doing a life sentence and this dude becomes your cellmate. And since the 80s, 90s, 2000s, he's been raping, killing, beating kids, women, raping, just the most heinous motherfucker. And he was living his entire life, was gonna literally go free. Even during his investigation, he was blaming his own sister. He was blaming the mom. When confronted with the DNA that was on the underwear of the little girl, he said, I don't like little kids. And you get put in the cell with this man. What do you think the prison feels about that? The little girl, Kirsten, who was basically just left for dead. The family didn't care. They moved away. I mean, if anything like this happened to anybody that I was close to in my life, God forbid, there wouldn't be a stone unturned. I would know every single thing about this neighbor, everyone in the community. I wouldn't put my faith in any system. Yet they just said, and left. What about your fucking neighbor that's over here fixing the kids' bikes and giving them icy? How come nobody decided to look him up? How come no investigating officers decided to look up the guy that has 3 different incidents involving children, violence, drugs? And then why did it take so long for the DNA to come back? 20 years? 97, okay, I get it, but 2005, 2007, shit, you had fucking CSI and all that shit going on. It was way ahead of the curve. So many cold cases were getting found. And the mom just moves out, leaves. Fuck that. How come she wasn't saying, hey, where's up with the DNA? They left that little girl. She was a lost one. They still never recovered the body. So 2019 rolls around. He's been in prison about 1.5 years now. He doesn't even want to put his appeal in that pretty much when you get a life sentence, it's mandatory. And you'll get it reviewed quicker than someone that has less time. I find this interesting. As he was beaten and strangled to death, the officers came into his cell. They found Palma laying in a puddle of blood with a blanket covering his body. The officers would yell, man, get that blanket off Palma. Lift him up. They would see an extension cord and his body just covered in bruises and lacerations. His cellmate, Raymond, was convicted for a triple homicide and had over 15 write-ups for stabbings, possession of knives, and over 15 cell phones in prison since his time in 2010. And they found an extension cord in his cell, and they were in a high custody unit. I find this detail funny. Either they really just didn't care about this girl, or they knew something was in the works. Because the Midwest detective said they were planning to visit Palma later in 2019. I mean, the devil's always in the detail, you know? They wanted to find her body. It always seems like later. Yet, they put that man in the cell who had access to officers, weapons, contraband, cell phones, because they knew that Palma would never make it out. In a small town like that, when a little girl disappears, is forgotten about, and then you find out she was viciously raped and murdered, and this dude is on the main line in the cell with the dude that probably picked up the cell phone, got the information, got some money, whatever the fuck transpired. The officers maybe gave him an extension cord, who knows? But the reality is this, that piece of shit Palma was beaten and strangled with an extension cord, begging for his life, then got thrown on the ground, covered in a blanket, and died in a puddle of blood. It took almost 2.5 hours for the officers to discover he was dead. And they come in the cell and tell the inmate, hey, Raymond, take the blanket off him. I never heard of nothing like that. That's how you know they were tight. But fuck that piece of shit. It's a tragedy, but at least some justice got for her. The justice was only for her. Stay out, stay free, us.